03:11 a.m. The sky over Moscow is systematically torn apart. At this exact second, Sheremetyevo International Airport, the crown jewel of Russian aviation, is under a siege that shouldn't be possible. 68 drones converging on a single coordinate. But as the first explosions rock the tarmac, a terrifying truth emerges. The Russian air defense is being defeated by the psychological collapse of the men behind the screens. We begin our journey 298 miles away in a frozen, nameless field near Konotop, Ukraine. The temperature is well below zero, the kind of cold that makes metal brittle. Out of the darkness, a 15-foot black shadow glides over the snow with a low, lawnmower-like drone. This is the Lyutyi. It looks crude, almost amateurish, but tonight, 24 of these queens are the primary killers. They are flanked by 44 Rubaka one-way attack drones, expendable pawns in a high-stakes game of chess. As the swarm crosses the border, the Ukrainian operators in a heated bunker in Kyiv watch their monitors with clinical intensity. On their screens, Sheremetyevo Airport isn't a civilian hub. It's a glowing target, radiating heat and electronic signals like a giant Christmas tree. Their objective is surgical. A fresh shipment of S-400 missile components that intelligence confirms has just arrived from Irkutsk. On paper, flying a slow propeller-driven drone into this airspace is a suicide mission. The tactical map is bleeding red with threats. 9 separate Russian air defense batteries, a lethal mix of Pantsir S-1s and long-range S-400s, stand between the drones and their prize. In a normal world, entering this net means instant vaporization, but the Ukrainians aren't playing by the old rules. The domino effect of tonight's disaster didn't start at 02:13 a.m. It started 9 days ago. This was the Advent calendar protocol in action. For over a week, Ukraine had been launching waves of beaver decoys. These are cheap, wooden drones that can barely maintain level flight. However, each one carries a $50 secret, a Lundberg lens. This small, spherical radar reflector does something miraculous. It catches the radar waves from a Russian S-400 and bounces them back with unnatural intensity. To the Russian operator sitting in a cramped, dark command vehicle, that $50 piece of plywood doesn't look like a toy. It looks like a Phantom F-16 fighter jet screaming toward the capital. On nights 1 through 3, the Russian response was nothing short of hysterical. Panic led to a Pavlovian reflex. Every blip on the screen triggered a full-scale barrage. The Moscow suburbs were treated to a nightly fireworks display worth millions. Pantsir batteries were dumping their entire magazines, 12 missiles at a time, chasing wooden ghosts. Russian military bloggers cheered on Telegram, posting shaky cell phone footage of victories. By night 5, the logistics began to fracture. Reload trucks were running 24-hour shifts, and the 30mm autocannon barrels were literally warping from the heat of constant, useless firing. But the most critical failure was human. By nights 7 and 8, the operators' nerves were fried. Every time a target appeared, a seed of doubt sprouted in their minds. Is this real, or am I about to waste a $1 million missile on a flying lawnmower? Science tells us that under this level of sustained stress, a human's reaction time degrades by about 4 seconds. In the world of supersonic missile interception, 4 seconds is the difference between a successful hit and a catastrophic impact. Tonight, that 4-second delay is the most powerful weapon in the Ukrainian arsenal. 02:40 a.m. Back in the present, the strike force is skimming the treetops of the Bryansk forest at a terrifyingly low altitude of 120 feet. They are hugging the dirt, using the curvature of the earth to stay below the radar horizon for as long as possible. But nature has decided to provide the final piece of the puzzle. Heavy snow begins to fall across the Moscow region. To the human eye, it's a winter wonderland. To a radar operator, it's a nightmare called backscatter. The snow creates millions of tiny, frozen reflectors that fill the radar screen with white static. Suddenly, the Russian defense awakens. The Pantsir S-1, a $15 million beast designed to kill exactly this kind of threat, detects a flicker. Sensing the danger, the Russian commanders play their ace card, the Krasuka 4 electronic warfare system. This truck-mounted jammer unleashes a massive dead zone, flooding the airwaves with electronic noise. At 02:48 a.m., the electronic battle reaches a fever pitch. In the Kyiv bunker, the screens go white. The GPS signal is spoofed, feeding the drones false data that says they are currently over the Atlantic Ocean. By all conventional logic, the swarm should now drift aimlessly and crash into the forest. But the drones don't crash, they blink. The moment the GPS signal dies, the onboard computers execute a protocol change to optical terrain matching. The drones are now using high-resolution cameras to scan the ground, comparing the roads and tree lines below to a preloaded satellite map stored in their hard drives. They no longer need the stars, they only need eyes. In a move that defies the limits of flight safety, the swarm drops even lower, down to just 50 feet. This is nap of the Earth flight. To the Russian Pantsir radars, the drones have merged with the forest. The radar cannot distinguish a carbon fiber wing from a swaying pine branch. 02:56 a.m. Panic finally replaces protocol in the Russian command loop. Realizing their automated systems are blind, the Pantsir crews make a desperate manual decision. If they can't lock on, they will create a wall of steel. The order is barked over the radio. Free fire, clear the sector. The sky erupts. 9 Pantsir batteries unleash everything they have. 57 E-6 missiles streak upward, and the twin 30mm autocannons begin to scream, spitting out 2,500 rounds per minute. A river of high-explosive incendiary tracers cuts through the darkness. This is where the math of sacrifice takes over. The 44 Rubaka drones were never meant to reach Sheremetyevo. They were the pawns. Their programming forced them to fly slightly higher and emit a louder acoustic signature. They were the matadors waving the red cape, and the Russian bull charged. The first volley is a massacre. 12 Rubakas are vaporized instantly into aluminum confetti, but the remaining 32 don't scatter. They accelerate directly into the gunfire. It is a brutal game of attrition. For every Rubaka that is shredded by a 30mm shell, a Russian missile tube goes empty. For every drone that crashes, a Russian barrel heats up closer to the point of warping. By 03:05 a.m., the last Rubaka spirals into a snowbank and explodes. Silence returns to the suburbs of Moscow. The Russian operators, sweating and shaking, look at their screens. 44 targets engaged, 44 targets destroyed, a 100% kill rate. They begin to high-five, believing they have saved the capital. They are wrong. They haven't saved anything. They have just emptied their magazines. 03:09 a.m. While the Russians were busy slaughtering the pawns, the 24 Lyutyi drones, the Queens, executed a hard bank to the left. Using the thermal noise and smoke of their burning comrades as a shield, they dropped to a suicidal altitude of 10 feet. They are now skimming just inches above the power lines, moving in total silence. The Rubakas bought them exactly 4 minutes of silence, the time it takes a well-trained Pantsir crew to reload. But the Lyutyi only need 3 minutes to cover the final distance to the runway. The path is now wide open. At 03:09 a.m., the battlefield falls into a terrifying lull. The Russian crews, their adrenaline crashing, are lighting cigarettes and waiting for reload trucks. They believe the sky is empty. Suddenly, the 24 Lyutyi drones pitch up. This maneuver is calculated to penetrate the reinforced concrete of a runway. You cannot come in shallow. You have to strike from a steep angle. The drones climb to 400 feet, exposing themselves to radar for the first time in an hour. The radar screens at Sheremetyevo light up with 24 fresh contacts, seemingly appearing out of thin air. The commander of Battery 4 stares in horror. He screams for his gunner to engage, but the gunner freezes. His digital ammunition counter reads 0. He mashes the firing pedal, but all he hears is the dry metallic click-click of a dead trigger. Battery 2, positioned to the north, has 2 missiles left. The operator fires them blindly. One missile loses its way, chasing a burning trash can it mistakes for an engine. The second missile clips Lyutyi number 07, sending it spinning into a snowbank just yards from the fuel farm. On the tarmac, Russian security guards open fire with AK-12 rifles. It is a wall of lead born of pure panic. 2 more drones are shredded by the small arms fire. One disintegrates, the other careens into an empty baggage cart and explodes. But that leaves 21 drones, and for Sheremetyevo, that is 21 too many. 03:11 a.m. Inside the logic boards of the remaining drones, the AI executes the final line of code. Terminal guidance. The optical sensors lock onto the high-contrast straight lines of the runways. Runways 07R and 25L shine like beacons against the dark ground. The explosion doesn't just crack the surface, it heaves the entire structure upward. A crater 25 feet wide and 8 feet deep blossoms in the middle of the runway. Seconds later, 3 more drones slam into the second runway. Both main arteries of Moscow's transport hub are severed. Nothing can land. Nothing can take off. But the attack isn't over. The remaining 17 drones veer toward the logistics. 4 slam into the Jet A-1 storage tanks at the North Fuel Farm. 40,000 gallons of aviation fuel ignite instantly, sending a 200-foot fireball into the sky. The heat is so intense it melts the fences. This pillar of black, oily smoke isn't just a byproduct, it is a tactical smoke screen. It creates a thermal wall that completely blinds the remaining infrared sensors of the airport's defenses. Under this cover, the final wave of 13 drones dives into the cargo terminal. They find their target, the crates marked for Irkutsk. In 60 seconds, the impenetrable fortress of Moscow has been turned into a burning parking lot. The Russian operators can only watch the flames, knowing they spent their last rounds on wooden toys while the real killers walked through the front door. As the smoke clears, the true scale of the disaster begins to radiate outward. The immediate paralysis is total. 212 flights canceled, 8 civilian airliners damaged by shrapnel, and a direct financial loss of $110 million in a single morning. But the strategic pain is far worse. Those crates in the cargo terminal contain the critical guidance chips for 12 new S-400 batteries destined for the Kursk front. Those chips are now dust. 3 entire air defense regiments are now useless for at least 11 days. 11 days where the skies over the front lines will be wide open. This is the checkmate. Putin now faces an impossible choice: pull Pantsir systems from the front lines to protect Moscow, or leave the capital vulnerable to the next day on the advent calendar. Ukraine was betting on this dilemma. Just 42 hours after the Sheremetyevo strike, while Moscow was frantically redeploying its defenses, Ukrainian jets launched a precision attack on vital bridges in the south. They faced zero resistance. The path was clear because the guards had been called home to protect the king. We used to believe that modern air defense was an impenetrable shield, but the night of December 8th proved that even the strongest shield can be shattered if you know where to strike. When you turn the snow into an ally, artificial intelligence into eyes, and patience into a weapon, no fortress can stand forever.